Chapter 1. I didn't lose my marriage the day my husband left me on the side of the road while I was in labor. I lost it years earlier, the moment he learned he could choose his family, his reputation, and his comfort over my safety and our unborn child. My name is Claire, and this is the story of how a quiet marriage turned into a public reckoning, and how the man who thought no one would ever see him lost everything the moment the world finally did. The first thing I felt was warmth where there should not have been any, a slow spreading heat across the seat and down my thighs, and for half a second my brain tried to make it something harmless: sweat, a spilled drink, anything but the truth. Then the cramp hit, low and deep, the kind that makes your teeth press together without permission, and I knew. It was a Saturday morning in late spring of 2022, the kind of morning people in our neighborhood used for yard sales and soccer games and brunch reservations. My due date was close enough that my calendar was nothing but doctor appointments and the quiet panic of waiting. I was 34, swollen in places I did not recognize, exhausted in a way that sleep never fixed, and still I was sitting in the passenger seat of my husband's SUV because he said we had to make an appearance. We were driving to his parents' house for a weekend visit, 2 days, 1 overnight, nothing big, he had insisted. He said his mother had already told everyone we were coming, and if we did not show up, it would start something. He said I was being dramatic. He said pregnancy was not an illness. The suburbs outside Raleigh blurred past in pale green, neat fences, churches on corners, coffee shops with chalkboards, and I tried to breathe through the tightness that had been building since we pulled out of the driveway. I had told him the night before that I did not feel safe being that far from the hospital. I had told him I had been cramping. I had told him I wanted to stay home. Tyler kept his eyes on the road like my words were insects hitting the windshield. He was 37 and carried himself like the world owed him smooth traffic and obedient people. The car smelled faintly of the leather cleaner he used every weekend. He liked everything in his life to look untouched. When the warmth spread again, there was no denying it. My hands flew to my belly, not because it helped, but because it was the only place I could put my fear. My heart began to pound so hard I could feel it in my throat. "Tyler?" I said, and my voice came out thin. He glanced over, irritated, like I was interrupting a podcast. "What now?" "My water broke," I said. "I think my water broke." For 1 second he stared at me, and I saw something that could have been concern. It vanished so fast I questioned if it was ever there. His jaw tightened, his grip on the wheel shifted. He looked down toward the seat, toward the spreading wetness, and his face changed the way a person's face changes when they step in mud. "Are you kidding me?" he said. I tried to move, to lift myself, to keep the mess contained, as if I could control what my body was doing. Another contraction rolled in, and I hissed through it. "Tyler, we need to go to the hospital, now." He did not answer right away. He hit his blinker, pulled onto the shoulder, and came to a stop with the suddenness of someone parking in anger. The moment the car was still, the silence felt too loud. My breath sounded wrong, fast and shallow. He turned toward me, eyes hard. "Get out." I blinked. "What?" "Get out of the car," he repeated. "You're not doing that in here. This is leather." I stared at him like he had spoken another language. I felt something hot rise behind my eyes. Not tears yet, more like shock trying to become rage. My hands were trembling. "Tyler, I'm in labor," I said. "I can't just stand on the side of the road." He exhaled sharply. "I'm not missing my parents' dinner because you couldn't hold it. Call an ambulance. Call one of those medical rides, whatever. Just get out. I'm not driving around with this in my seats." The word "this" landed on me like a slap. Not me, not our baby, this. Another contraction hit, stronger, and my body folded inward. My forehead pressed to the window. I could see my own reflection, pale and wide-eyed. I could see Tyler's expression, still, annoyed, controlled, like he was dealing with a flat tire. "Please," I said, and I hated the way it sounded. "Please don't leave me here." He opened his door and got out. He came around to my side, yanked the handle, and the air rushed in, warm and thick. My legs felt weak, not from emotion, but from my body preparing for something I could not stop. He grabbed my elbow, not gently, and helped me out in the way you help someone off a bus when you want them out quickly. My feet hit the gravel shoulder. Pain sliced through me and I doubled slightly, one hand on my belly. He leaned into the car, pulled a small towel from the back, wiped at the seat like it mattered, then tossed the towel on the floorboard with disgust. He looked at me again, standing there with my hair stuck to my neck, my dress damp, my stomach heavy and tight. "You have your phone, right?" he said. "Yes," I whispered. "Then use it. I'm not going to be late," he said. "My mom's been cooking since yesterday. You know how she is." I could not make my mouth form words. I watched him close the door. I watched him walk back around, get in, start the engine. The SUV rumbled, familiar and steady, like nothing was happening. "Tyler," I said, louder this time. "Tyler, wait." He did not look at me. The car eased forward, merged back into traffic, and was gone, a gray shape disappearing between two minivans. For a moment, I just stood there. The wind from the passing cars lifted the hem of my dress. A bird called somewhere in the trees. The world was still normal in every direction except the one place where I existed. Then my body reminded me. Another contraction, another wave, and I bent over, hands on my knees, breathing through it like I had practiced in a class I never wanted to take. My throat felt tight. My skin felt cold despite the sun. I fumbled for my phone with shaking fingers and dialed 911. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, high, clipped, like someone else. I told the dispatcher I was pregnant and my water had broken, and I was on the shoulder of a road in a residential stretch near a shopping center I could see in the distance. She asked me questions, calm and methodical. Was I bleeding? Were contractions regular? Could I safely stay off the road? I told her I was alone. She paused just a beat, and I heard something change in her tone, something human. She told me help was on the way, but the nearest unit was coming from farther out, and response times were longer than usual. She asked if I had anyone who could come pick me up, a friend, a neighbor, a family member. My fingers clenched around the phone. I could have called Tyler. I could have begged. I could have tried to make him feel guilty. But the truth was already louder than any call I could make. I told her I would try to find someone nearby. I ended the call and looked around. Houses sat back from the road behind rows of trees. Lawns were trimmed. Everything looked peaceful, like a brochure for safety. I tried to walk a few steps farther from traffic, but my legs felt heavy and unsteady. Another contraction hit and I had to stop, bracing myself against a metal signpost. I could feel tears now, not falling, just gathering with nowhere to go. A car slowed. A small blue sedan pulled onto the shoulder ahead of me. The driver's door opened quickly. A woman stepped out, phone already in her hand. "Marin," she said, breathless, and it took my brain a second to register her face. "Nadine Harper. She lived 3 houses down from us. We had waved at each other while bringing in groceries. She had once brought over a misdelivered package with a smile. That was the extent of our relationship." "Oh my God, are you okay?" she said. "I saw you and I knew something was wrong." I tried to answer and my voice cracked. "My water broke. I think my water broke." For 1 second she stared at me and I saw something that could have been concern. It vanished so fast I questioned if it was ever there. Her eyes flicked to the road, to the space where my husband's SUV should have been, and then back to me, sharp with understanding. "Where is he?" I swallowed hard. Gone. Nadine did not ask why. She did not tell me to calm down. She did not say maybe it was a misunderstanding. She moved like someone who had already decided what mattered.
"Okay," she said. "We're getting you to the hospital. I'm calling a medical transport right now. Ambulances can take forever out here." She said it with the certainty of someone who had been there or known someone who had. She spoke into her phone with clipped authority, giving our location, explaining that I was full term and my water had broken. Then she came back to me, put a steady hand on my shoulder. "Look at me," she said. "You're not alone. You're going to be okay. We just have to get you somewhere safe." The words cracked something open in me. Tears finally spilled, quiet and unstoppable, mixing with sweat and fear. I hated crying in front of her, hated being seen like this, but my body did not care about pride. Nadine guided me into the shade near her car, keeping me away from traffic. She stayed close without crowding me.
When contractions hit, she counted my breaths with me. Inhale, exhale. She kept her own voice steady, like a rope I could hold on to. The transport arrived faster than I would have believed, a plain vehicle with 2 medical attendants who moved with practiced calm. Nadine spoke to them, answered their questions, and I realized she had become my advocate in a crisis without hesitation. As they helped me onto a stretcher, I glanced down the road one last time, still half expecting Tyler's SUV to appear, like maybe he had come to his senses. Nothing. The ride to the hospital was a blur of bumps and breathing and the steady beeping of a monitor clipped to my finger. The attendants talked to me, asked my name, asked how far apart the contractions were, told me I was doing great. Nadine followed behind in her car. By the time we reached the hospital entrance, my whole body felt like it was made of pain and adrenaline. Bright lights spilled over the doors. Nurses took over with brisk efficiency. Questions came in a stream: insurance, allergies, due date, doctor's name. I answered as best I could. My mind kept drifting back to the shoulder of that road, to the sound of Tyler's door closing, to the way he said this, like my body and my baby were a stain. They rolled me into a room and transferred me to a bed. The air smelled like antiseptic and clean sheets. A nurse placed sensors on my belly, straps tight against my skin. A screen flickered to life. A heartbeat filled the room, fast and strong. For the first time since the car stopped, I let myself exhale fully. The sound of my baby's heartbeat should have been comforting, and it was, but it also made the truth settle deeper. It was not the pain that would stay with me, it was the choice my husband made when it mattered most. In that moment, with that steady rhythm in the room and the walls of the hospital around me, I understood something I had refused to say out loud for years. This was not a marriage problem, it was a decency problem. Chapter 2. The truth of it sat in my chest like a stone, heavy and undeniable, and once I named it to myself, I started seeing everything that led up to it with a clarity that made me sick. Ryan and I had been married for almost 5 years by the time I ended up on that roadside. 5 years sounds like a long time until you realize how easy it is for a person to shape your world one small dismissal at a time. People think cruelty arrives as a single explosion. In my life, it arrived as a pattern, quiet enough that I kept second-guessing my own reaction, steady enough that it became normal. Ryan never hit me. That is the detail people grab onto, like it settles the question. If there were no bruises, it must not have been that bad. He used something else, something harder to prove and easier to excuse. Tone, timing, the ability to make every conversation feel like I was the one who started it. It began early, right after we moved into our house outside Columbus. I was building a freelance career editing content for small companies and nonprofits, working from a desk in the corner of our guest room. It was real work, deadlines, clients, invoices, late nights rewriting copy until my eyes blurred. Ryan treated it like a hobby I used to avoid being a proper adult. One afternoon, I mentioned I had landed a new client, a regional dental chain that needed weekly blog posts. I was excited because it meant steady income for a few months, and I wanted him to be proud of me. He walked past my desk, glanced at the email on my screen, and said, "So you're still doing the laptop thing?" I said, "It's not a thing, it's my job." He laughed, short and sharp, like I was adorable for trying. "A job is what pays benefits. A job is what gets you out of the house. This is you playing pretend in sweatpants." I remember the heat rising up my neck. I remember thinking, he doesn't mean it the way it sounds. I remember swallowing my anger and telling myself it was easier not to fight. That became the rhythm. I would speak, he would dismiss. If I objected, he would tilt his head and act concerned. "Why are you so sensitive, Claire?" he would say, like he was worried about me. "You take everything personally." The first time he said it, I froze. The second time, I started wondering if he was right. The 10th time, I was apologizing before I even finished my sentence. His mother, Denise Mercer, played her own role in it, and she did it with a smile that never reached her eyes. Denise was 63, the kind of woman who kept her hair perfect and her kitchen spotless, who loved to talk about family values while quietly controlling every corner of the room. When we visited, she hugged Ryan like he was still a boy and looked at me like I was a temporary employee. She never outright insulted me. She compared, she suggested, she corrected. "Ryan likes his shirts folded a certain way," she said once, taking a stack of laundry out of my hands. "I taught him that. Men need stability." Another time, I brought a salad to dinner and she barely glanced at it. "Glenn Mercer likes hearty food," she said, "the kind that fills you up. You know how men are." Glenn Mercer was 66 and mostly quiet, a man who watched sports and nodded along while his wife spoke for both of them. He did not yell at me, he did not defend me either. His silence worked like permission. If Ryan was sharp, Denise was steady. She called every week, sometimes more, always under the excuse of checking in. The calls were never about me, not really. They were about whether I was performing the role correctly. "Are you keeping the house nice for him?" she asked once, as if it were normal. "You know Ryan works hard. He needs a peaceful place to come home to." I said, "I work too." There was a pause and then a laugh that sounded polite. "Oh, honey," she said, "that little computer work is cute, but it's not the same. You'll understand when you have real responsibilities." I hung up and stared at my phone for a long time, feeling foolish for thinking she would ever see me as anything but a disruption. The hardest part was how Ryan used her as a measuring stick. Whenever we disagreed, he would bring her into it as if she were the final judge of what was reasonable. "My mom never made things so complicated," he would say. "My mom knew how to support her husband." Sometimes he said it casually, like a fun fact. Sometimes he said it with anger, like a weapon. Either way, it landed in the same place, the part of me that kept trying to earn approval I would never get. There were moments when I tried to push back, small moments of resistance that always ended the same way. One night, maybe 2 years into our marriage, I told him I wanted to spend Thanksgiving with my parents for once. We had gone to his family every single holiday since the wedding. I brought it up gently at first, like a suggestion. He was sitting on the couch scrolling through his phone. Without looking up, he said, "We always go to my parents." I said, "I know, that's why I'm asking. My mom has been talking about it for months." He finally looked at me, annoyance already on his face. "So we're just going to disappoint my mom now?" I said, "It's not about disappointing anyone, it's about being fair." He leaned back and sighed like he was the only adult in the room. "Claire," he said, "why do you do this? Why do you always need to make everything a problem?" I remember standing there, my hands clenched at my sides, feeling my own voice disappear. 10 minutes later, I was telling him it was fine, we could go to his parents. I did not want to cause drama. He nodded like that was the correct answer. By the time I got pregnant, I was already trained. I knew what fights were worth having, which meant I rarely fought at all. Pregnancy should have changed something. It should have made him gentler, or at least more cautious. Instead, it became another way he framed me as inconvenient. When I was nauseous and could not eat, he said I was being picky. When I was exhausted, he said I was lazy. When I asked him to come to an appointment, he said, "What do you want me to do, hold your hand?"
Denise got worse. She treated my pregnancy like it belonged to their family, not my body. She gave advice that sounded like orders. "Do not gain too much weight," she said. "Men lose attraction and then you end up wondering what happened." I stared at her across her dining table, my fork frozen in my hand. Ryan did not correct her. He smirked like it was a joke they shared. The night of the dinner that made everything click, I was 8 months pregnant and already uncomfortable enough that sitting through a meal felt like a marathon. We were at Denise and Glenn's house, the same warm lighting, the same framed family photos, the same sense that I was always being evaluated. Denise served pot roast and mashed potatoes, and she talked about the weekend as if it was already decided. "We'll see you Saturday morning," she said. "I told your aunt and uncle you'd be here. They're excited." I took a breath. "My doctor said I should stay close to the hospital. I'm not sure it's smart for me to be driving around that much." Denise's smile tightened. "Oh, please," she said. "Women have babies every day. You're not fragile." Ryan's fork paused midair. "Here we go," he muttered. I tried again, keeping my voice even. "I've been having cramps. I just want to be careful." Denise waved a hand like she could brush away my discomfort. "When I was pregnant with Ryan, I hosted a barbecue in July. I did not complain. I did what needed to be done." Glenn glanced up from his plate, then back down, chewing slowly. Ryan looked at me with that familiar expression, the one that said I was embarrassing him. "You're acting like you're dying," he said. "It's a weekend visit, 2 days. Stop making it weird." My face felt like it was burning. "I'm not making it weird. I'm asking to stay home." Denise leaned forward, her voice softening into something that sounded caring but felt pressure. "Claire," she said, "this is family. You do not skip family because you're uncomfortable. You show up. That's what wives do." Ryan nodded, satisfied. "Exactly." My hands started to shake under the table. I wanted to say, "I'm a person, not a role." I wanted to say, "I'm carrying your grandchild and I'm scared." Instead, I heard myself say, "I just don't feel safe." Ryan's eyes went cold. "Fine," he said. "I'm going. If you're going to be dramatic, that's on you, but I'm not dealing with the fallout. My mom already told everyone we're coming." Denise smiled like she had won something. "There you go," she said to him. "You can't let her control everything." I sat there, feeling the room tilt, realizing that my safety meant less than their schedule. That night, back in our house, I went into the guest room where my desk was, shut the door, and opened a notebook I had bought months earlier and never used. My hands were still shaking, but I wrote down the date. I wrote down what Denise said. I wrote down what Ryan said. I wrote down the way he looked at me when I asked for caution, like I was ruining his life. I told myself it was just to organize my thoughts. I told myself it was so I could explain things better next time. I told myself it was not evidence, not really, because I wasn't planning anything. But somewhere deep down, a part of me had already started preparing for the day I would need to prove I wasn't imagining it. Sitting in that quiet room, I thought about the roadside again, not the image of cars and gravel, but the feeling of being treated like a mess to be removed, and I understood that what happened to me was not a sudden betrayal. It was the final, predictable outcome of years of being told in 100 different ways that my needs did not count.
Chapter 3. In the hospital, time stopped behaving like time. It came in bright slices between contractions, between nurses coming and going, between the beep of the monitor and the steady rush of voices in the hallway. My son arrived just after midnight, red-faced and furious at the world, and the sound of his cry snapped something inside me loose. For a few minutes, I forgot everything except that he was here, that he was breathing, that his tiny fingers wrapped around mine like he had chosen me on purpose. When the room quieted, reality crept back in through my phone. The first message from Ryan came while I was still shaking from the delivery. "You okay?" The next one arrived 2 minutes later. "Claire, answer me. I didn't have a choice. You know my mom would freak." Then another. "Hospital? Which one? I can't lose my job over this." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering, my body heavy and sore. The words felt like a continuation of everything I had lived through. Not "Are you safe?" Not "Is the baby okay?" Just panic about consequences, and the way he framed it like the problem was my reaction. A nurse stepped in to check my vitals. She looked at my face, then at the tears that had gathered without me noticing. "You have someone with you?" she asked. "My neighbor got me here," I said. "Good," she said, and her tone softened. "We can call security if anyone shows up and causes trouble. You focus on you and the baby." I nodded, though my throat tightened at the idea that it might come to that. Nadine Harper visited the next morning with a paper bag from a coffee shop, her hair pulled into a messy bun, like she had left the house quickly because she could not stand the thought of me being alone. "I told my boss I had an emergency," she said, setting the bag down, "because you did." I tried to smile, but it came out crooked. "I don't even know how to thank you." Nadine pulled up the chair and leaned closer. "You don't. You just let me sit here for a minute and make sure you're not falling apart." I looked down at my son, swaddled tight, his cheeks round, his eyes squeezed shut, as if sleep was his only defense. "I'm scared," I admitted. "I know," Nadine said, "but listen to me. That man left you on the side of the road. That is not a misunderstanding. That is not stress. That is who he is." Her words hit me with the bluntness of truth. I wanted to argue because arguing would mean there was still something to fix. Instead, I just sat there, breathing, letting the reality settle. Ryan called again around noon. The phone buzzed against the bedside table like a warning. I did not answer. He texted instead. "Mom is losing it. She says you're embarrassing us. Where are you?" Then another. "I'm coming up there. Don't make this worse." My stomach turned, and for the first time since labor ended, I felt the same cold fear I had felt on the roadside. My best friend, Kendra Lewis, arrived later that afternoon. She was 31, quick-witted, the kind of woman who could turn a crowded room in her direction without trying. She worked in social media for a small marketing firm, which meant she lived online without believing everything she saw there. The moment she walked into my hospital room and saw the tension in my shoulders, her face hardened. "He's been contacting you," she said. I nodded, too tired to pretend. "He keeps talking about his job, about his mom, like that's the emergency." Kendra pulled a chair close to the bed and lowered her voice. "Claire, Nadine told me what happened. I don't care what excuse he gives. You could have died." My eyes burned. "I know." Kendra reached into her tote bag and pulled out her phone. "I need to show you something before you hear it from anyone else." I felt my whole body go still. "What?" Kendra swallowed, then turned the screen toward me. "A guy posted this in a neighborhood group. It got shared, a lot." On the screen was a shaky video shot from inside another car. The angle was wrong, the audio muffled, but the scene was unmistakable. An SUV on the shoulder, a woman getting out, one hand on her stomach, a man moving like he was irritated, the car door slamming, the SUV pulling back into traffic. My skin went cold, my breath caught like my lungs forgot what to do. "That's us," I whispered. Kendra nodded. "Someone was behind you, they recorded it. They didn't know you, they just saw what was happening and it looked bad." "It was bad," I said, and my voice sounded far away. Kendra scrolled. "The original poster didn't have your name. They said they saw a pregnant woman left on the side of the road. People started asking questions. Someone recognized the SUV, not the license plate, just the make in those stupid custom rims Ryan loves. They connected it to a photo he posted last year, then it spread." My mouth dried. "Did it show my face?" Kendra shook her head. "Not clearly, and I blurred what I could before it got wider. I don't want you exposed. I only wanted people to focus on him." I stared at her. "You posted it?" "I did," she said, and her voice didn't flinch. "I'm posted a cropped version and I covered anything that could identify you. I'm not sorry. I'm done watching women get erased to protect men's reputations." My chest tightened, a mix of fear and relief.
I had spent so long being told to stay quiet, to keep peace, to avoid drama. Now the world was looking straight at what I had lived through, and part of me wanted to hide under the blankets. Another part of me felt something loosen, like a belt being unfastened after years of constriction. "What are people saying?" I asked. Kendra's eyes flicked toward my son, then back to me. "They're furious. Women are commenting. A lot of women. They're telling their own stories. And the men, some of them are trying to defend him, but they're getting shut down fast." My phone buzzed again. A call. Ryan. Kendra watched my face. "Do you want me to answer?" "No," I said quickly. "No, I can't." Kendra nodded and texted from her phone, quick and precise. She showed me what she wrote before she sent it. "Do not come to the hospital. Claire and the baby are safe. Any further contact needs to go through her family or her attorney." I blinked. Attorney? It's a word men like him respect, even if you don't have one yet. My throat tightened again, but this time it wasn't just fear, it was the strange feeling of being protected by another woman's certainty. That evening, Nadine returned with my charger and a small bag of baby items she had grabbed from my porch. She glanced at Kendra, then at me. "Is he trying to come here?" Nadine asked. "He says he is," I admitted. Nadine's jaw clenched. "I'll talk to the nurse. They can flag his name." Kendra looked at Nadine. "How do they do that?" Nadine shrugged. "I don't know, but hospitals deal with drama all the time. They have security, they can handle one selfish man." I watched them, two women who barely knew each other, organizing my safety like it was obvious that I deserved it. My eyes stung again. I turned my face toward my son so they would not see me cry. The next morning, the consequences of the video began to show up in ways that made my stomach twist. Ryan's texts shifted from angry to frantic. "Who posted that? My boss called me in. This is insane. Tell them it's not what it looks like." Then, "Mom says you're ruining our family." Then, "Take it down, Claire, please, I'll fix it, just take it down." There was still no question about how I was healing, no mention of the baby's health, just the desperate scramble of a man who realized the story was not under his control anymore. Denise called twice. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail that the nurse later played for me in case it mattered for documentation. Her voice was tight, furious, but wrapped in that same polite tone she always used. "Claire, this is unacceptable. You need to be an adult and stop this. People are talking. Ryan is under stress. You have embarrassed this family enough. Call me back." Glenn did not call. His silence felt louder than ever. Kendra listened to the voicemail and scoffed. "She's not worried about you, she's worried about being seen." Nadine leaned on the window ledge and said quietly, "That's why you don't go back." I felt my pulse speed up. I can't even think that far yet. "You don't have to decide everything today," Nadine said. "You just have to get out of here safely." On discharge day, a nurse came in with papers and a tired smile. "You're cleared to go home. Do you have a safe place?" "My parents' house," I said. "Good," she said. "We'll have someone walk you down. We had a call from a man asking for your room number. We didn't give it, but we're going to be cautious." My stomach dropped. "He called here?" Kendra's face darkened. "Of course he did." Nadine reached for my bag. "We're not doing this alone. I'll pull my car up. Kendra, you go with her. I'll follow." I held my son against my chest, the carrier straps tight over my shoulders, and tried to focus on the weight of him, the warmth of him, the reality of what mattered. In the hallway, an officer in a Navy uniform waited near the nurse's station, not making a big show of it, just standing there like a boundary. As we moved toward the elevator, my phone buzzed again, another text from Ryan. "I'm downstairs, we need to talk." My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. Kendra took it gently from me and turned it off. "You don't talk to him today. Today you go somewhere safe." The elevator doors closed, and for a brief moment, surrounded by fluorescent light and the hum of the building, I felt the same numb clarity I had felt on the roadside. The difference was, I was not alone this time. When the doors opened to the lobby, I held my breath, expecting chaos. Instead, the officer walked a few steps ahead, scanning quietly. We moved out through the automatic doors into the bright afternoon, and the air outside felt sharp, like a reset. Nadine's car was pulled up close. Kendra opened the back door for me. I slid in carefully, my body still tender, my son sleeping against my chest. As we drove away from the hospital, the building shrinking in the rear window, I realized something that made my throat tighten again. The story was no longer only mine to carry in silence. The world had seen a piece of it, enough to recognize it for what it was. And for the first time in years, I did not feel crazy for refusing to pretend it was normal. Chapter 4. The relief of being believed did not erase the fear. It just made room for something else, something sharper, the understanding that Ryan was not going to let go quietly. At my parents' place, my phone kept buzzing like an insect trapped in a glass. Calls from numbers I recognized, calls from numbers I did not, texts that swung between pleading and rage. My mother tried to take the phone from me, but I needed to see what he was doing, not because I wanted to engage, but because part of me had finally accepted that ignoring a fire does not put it out. Kendra stayed the first night on the couch, her laptop open, one eye on my front window like she expected Ryan to appear from the dark. "He thinks if he shows up in person, you'll fold," she said. "I don't even know what I'd do if he did," I admitted. "You do what you did at the hospital," she said. "You don't explain, you don't negotiate, you protect yourself." The next morning, the first real crack in Ryan's certainty arrived from a direction he could not argue with. My phone lit up with a new message. "HR wants me in a meeting at 9. What the hell did you do?" I stared at it for a long moment, the words blurring. I had not called his company, I had not emailed his boss, I had not tried to destroy his life. The video had done what videos do. It traveled. It found people who recognized the shape of a story they had seen before. Kendra read over my shoulder and let out a soft sound that was half disgust, half satisfaction. "Look at that," she said. "He thinks you have to be the villain for him to face consequences." Nadine came by later with a casserole my mother insisted we did not need, and a face that looked tight around the eyes. "You okay?" she asked as soon as she stepped inside. I nodded, then shook my head because the truth was more complicated than yes or no. "I'm out," I said, "but he's spiraling." Nadine set the dish on the counter and lowered her voice. "He called me," she said. My stomach dropped. "Ryan called you?" She nodded once. "He demanded to know if I told anyone. He said I sabotaged him." Kendra crossed her arms. "He left her on the road. How does that translate to you sabotaging him?" Nadine's mouth tightened. "Because he can't accept that people saw him. He can only accept a conspiracy." I looked at Nadine, really looked at her, and noticed something I had not noticed before. She was calm, but there was an edge under it, like she had been holding back information. "Nadine," I said quietly, "why are you so sure about how his company will respond?" She hesitated, then exhaled. "My husband works there," she said. Kendra's eyebrows lifted. "At Ryan's company?" Nadine nodded. "Ethan is a managing director. He oversees operations." For a second, I just stared, my mind trying to rearrange everything in a new order. "I didn't tell me that," I said. "I didn't want you to think I helped because of that," she said quickly. "I stopped because you were alone and you were in labor. I would have stopped for anyone." Kendra's voice softened. "Okay, but does Ethan know?" Nadine looked down, then back up. "He saw the video before I said anything. People in the company group chat were sending it around like wildfire. He came home furious, not at you, at him, at Ryan, at the fact that someone who represents the company would do that." My throat tightened. "So this is why HR called him?" Nadine nodded. "Ethan did not start it, but once HR got involved, it became official. Reputational risk, code of conduct. They have policies for behavior that puts the company in the spotlight."
I sank onto the couch, my body still tender, my son asleep in the bassinet beside me. I didn't plan any of this, I said. I know, Nadine said. You didn't have to. The truth is strong enough on its own. That afternoon, Ryan called again. I watched the name flash on the screen until it stopped. A minute later, a voicemail arrived. I did not play it. I could not. The sound of his voice had become a trigger, like my nervous system braced itself every time. Kendra leaned forward. You need a lawyer, I said. I don't even know where to start. My dad, who had been quiet in the doorway, spoke up. I do. He handed me a card. Maya Chen, family law. She helped a coworker's sister. She's solid. I stared at the name and felt my pulse steady, just a little. A plan, a direction. The next day, I sat in Maya Chen's office with a diaper bag at my feet and a sleeping baby strapped to my chest. Maya looked like she belonged in a courtroom. Sharp bob haircut, measured voice, the kind of calm that comes from seeing other people's chaos for a living. She did not ask me to justify why I was there. She asked for facts. When did the incident happen? She asked. I gave her the date, the location, the hospital name. What contact has he made since? She asked. I slid my phone across the desk with screenshots ready. The messages, the calls, the voicemail notifications. Maya scrolled, expression unreadable. He's escalating. I don't want to ruin him, I said, the old reflex rising, the urge to sound reasonable, to seem fair. Maya looked up. Claire, listen to me. You are not ruining him. You are responding to what he did. Those are different things. My throat tightened. He keeps saying he didn't have a choice. Maya's eyes held mine. Everyone has a choice. He chose his comfort over your safety. Now you choose your safety over his comfort. She explained custody in simple terms, that the court cares about the child's best interest, that stability matters, that documenting contact and threats matters. She explained child support without making it feel like greed, just a legal obligation that exists whether he feels like a father or not. Then she leaned back slightly. One more thing, she said. Recording. In Ohio, you can record a conversation you are part of without telling the other person. I swallowed. So, it's legal? It's legal here, she said. You do not bait him, you do not provoke, but if he calls and you answer, you can record. 2 days later, Ryan called at night. My parents were in the kitchen. Kendra was still with me, sitting at the table with her laptop like a guard dog. I looked at the screen and felt my hands tremble. Kendra spoke softly. If you want, I'll sit here. You don't have to do it alone. I hit record on my phone the way Maya showed me, then answered. Ryan's voice came in hot and tight. Finally, he said, do you have any idea what you've done? I didn't do anything, I said, keeping my voice flat, forcing my breathing to stay slow. You let people think I'm a monster, he said. HR took my badge today, my laptop. They walked me out like I stole something. My stomach flipped, but I kept my tone steady. They did that because of what you did. He barked a laugh that sounded more like a choke. My mom is getting calls. My aunt is crying. This is humiliating. You could have handled this privately. You left me on the side of the road, I said. There was a pause, and for a second I thought he might actually say the words I had needed years. Instead, he said, I didn't have time to deal with it. You know how my family is. And now I'm the one paying for it. Kendra's ears met mine across the table, her expression hard, like she was watching a predator reveal itself. Ryan's voice softened suddenly, rehearsed. Look, he said, we can fix this. Come back. We'll tell everyone it was a misunderstanding. I'll talk to HR. I just need you to cooperate. You haven't asked how the baby is, I said. I know he's fine, he snapped, then caught himself. I mean, I assume he's fine. That's not the point right now. My chest tightened. What is the point? I asked. The point is I could lose everything, he said. If this goes to court, if people keep talking, I'm done. My mom says you always wanted to punish me, prove her wrong. There it was, not remorse, not love, panic. I kept my voice calm. Any further contact needs to go through my lawyer. His breathing changed. I could hear the fear slide under the anger. You got a lawyer? He said. Yes, I said. You're really doing this? He said, and his voice cracked, not with emotion, but with the shock of consequences. You're really going to take my kid? I'm protecting my child and myself. His tone shifted again, sharp and desperate. You can't afford a fight, you know that. You don't even have a real job. Kendra's fist tightened at the table. I ended the call. Afterwards, my whole body trembled, adrenaline flooding my arms, my legs, my throat. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt like I had just walked out of a burning house and realized how close the flames had been to my skin. The next week unfolded like a slow collapse. Ryan texted less and called more, then stopped calling altogether when Maya sent a formal notice. Denise left voicemails that swung from fury to pleading. This is not who you are, she said in one message. You're a good girl. Don't let strangers poison you against your family. Glenn finally called. His voice was flat, careful. Claire, we need to keep this out of court. Ryan's career is on the line. I held the phone away from my ear for a second, stunned by the simplicity of it. Even now, the priority was his reputation. I'm not discussing this with you, I said, and hung up. A few days later, Nadine
texted me one sentence. He's terminated. I stared at the screen until the letters stopped looking like letters. Ryan's next message arrived that night. HR fired me. Ethan signed off. So yeah, your neighbor's husband is the reason my life is over. I read it twice, then set the phone down. Nadine called, voice quiet. Claire, I'm sorry, I didn't want it to happen this way. Ethan didn't do it out of revenge. HR did what HR does when the company is exposed. He told them the truth when they asked. I know, I said, and I did. For once, I did. The divorce papers were filed soon after, not because Ryan suddenly saw the light, but because fear made him practical. Maya told me he wanted to avoid a drawn-out fight, to avoid depositions, to avoid more public attention. When the court date was set for the first hearing, I expected to feel a rush of victory. I felt nothing like that. I felt tired and clear and strangely calm, like the world had finally returned to the basic rules I always believed in. Actions lead to consequences. Truth does not stay buried forever, not if enough people refuse to look away. That night, after I put my son down and the house went quiet, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea I forgot to drink, listening to the refrigerator hum. The silence felt different than it used to. It did not feel like loneliness. It felt like space. And for the first time since the roadside, I realized I was not waiting for Ryan to change anymore. I was waiting for myself to heal. Chapter 5. Healing was not a single moment. It was a series of mornings where nothing terrible happened, and I slowly stopped flinching anyway. About a year and a half after the divorce papers were finalized, I found myself standing in a pediatric clinic in suburban Columbus, rocking my son on my hip while he tried to grab the stickers off the nurse's badge. His hair had started to curl at the ends. He had a laugh that came from his whole body, the kind of laugh that made strangers turn and smile even when they looked tired. The nurse weighed him, measured him, then looked at me. "She's doing great," she said. I nodded, my throat tightening with a familiar mix of gratitude and grief. Gratitude that he was thriving, grief for the version of me who thought a family was something you could hold together by shrinking yourself. After the appointment, we walked out into a crisp fall afternoon, the sky bright and clean like the world had been scrubbed. I buckled him into his car seat and sat behind the wheel for a second without turning the ignition, just breathing. In the quiet, I could hear my own thoughts without the constant noise of someone correcting them. At home, my life looked ordinary, and that was the miracle. I rented a small 2-bedroom townhouse a few minutes from my parents' place. It was not fancy, the carpet was worn in one spot, the kitchen faucet squeaked if you turned it too fast, but it was mine and my son's. The kind of home where I could leave a toy on the floor and not feel my stomach clench, waiting for someone to complain about it. My freelance work had stabilized. I edited articles for a nonprofit that focused on community health. I proofread grant proposals. I wrote website copy for small businesses that needed help sounding professional. The work was quiet and steady. It did not make me rich, but it paid the bills, and more importantly, it belonged to me. Kendra liked to tease me when I got too serious about it. "Listen to you," she said one evening while she helped me fold laundry on the couch. "You're like a grown-up now." I smirked. "I was a grown-up before, I just wasn't allowed to be treated like one." Kendra nodded, the joke fading into something softer. "That's the part people don't get," she said. "They think leaving is dramatic. They don't see how much quieter your life gets after." Nadine and Ethan became a steady presence, not as saviors but as friends who never tried to rewrite what happened. They brought dinner sometimes, they checked in without prying, they treated me like a person, not a headline. One Saturday, Ethan showed up with a bag of groceries and a cautious expression. "I'm not sure if I should tell you this," he said. Nadine elbowed him lightly. "If it's about him, we can keep it vague." I set him in his high chair with a handful of blueberries and looked at them. "What is it?" I asked. Ethan exhaled. "He applied for a role at a vendor we work with, smaller company. They asked for references." I felt my shoulders tense, an old reflex. "And?" I said. Ethan looked me in the eye. "They didn't take him, not because of you, not because of me, because the story follows him. People have long memories when a video exists." I did not know what to do with that information. Part of me wanted to feel satisfied. Part of me felt sad, not for him, but for the way he had thrown his own life away over something so avoidable. Nadine watched my face. "You don't have to carry guilt for consequences you didn't create," she said quietly. "He made a choice. The rest is just math." The strangest thing about karma is that it rarely arrives like fireworks. It comes like doors that stop opening, like conversations that end abruptly, like invitations that never arrive. It comes in the slow erosion of a reputation that once felt unbreakable. Ryan tried for a while to rebuild his image. I saw it in small ways that floated into my life through mutual acquaintances and the internet. A LinkedIn post about second chances, a photo at a charity run with a caption about resilience, comments turned off, reactions limited, the kind of careful presentation that tells you a person is trying to control the narrative again. Once I got a message from a woman I did not know. "I'm sorry to bother you," she wrote. "My cousin is dating Ryan. He says his ex ruined his life. I saw the video. I just needed to ask, am I crazy for being worried?" I stared at the message for a long time. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. For a second, I felt that old pull to explain, to defend myself, to prove I was not unreasonable. Then I remembered what Maya told me back when my life was still a mess of legal papers and adrenaline. "You do not have to argue with reality." I replied with one sentence. "You're not crazy to trust what you saw." That was all. I did not owe anyone a detailed story. I did not owe anyone closure. I owed myself peace. Ryan's parents disappeared from my life the way they had always wanted me to, as if I had been a problem they could finally remove. I heard through the same quiet channels that they moved to a different county, closer to Denise's sister. Glenn retired fully, Denise volunteered at a church and told people vague things about family betrayal. Their world remained built on appearances, and I no longer lived inside it. Co-parenting was structured, limited, and often handled through an app, exactly as my attorney advised. I kept my boundaries clean. Ryan showed up for some visits, he missed others. He sent messages that were sometimes polite, sometimes bitter. The tone shifted based on how powerless he felt that week. One time, after he missed a scheduled pickup, he texted me late at night. "You're really happy without me, aren't you?" I stared at the screen and felt nothing like anger, just a quiet understanding. I did not respond.
The happiest moment I had that year was not dramatic. It was on a random Tuesday evening when my son was finally asleep, the dishes were done, and I sat at my small kitchen table with my laptop open. I was editing a document for a client, and outside my window, a neighbor's porch light flicked on. The world kept moving, my life kept moving, and for the first time in a long time, my nervous system believed it. That was the real ending, not the divorce, not the job loss, not the viral video. The real ending was the silence that felt safe. If you've made it this far with me, I want to say one thing as clearly as I can. If you are in a relationship where you have to suffer in order to be loved, where your pain is treated like an inconvenience, where you keep being told you are too sensitive for having normal needs, you might be standing exactly where I once stood. You do not have to wait for the next big disaster to prove to yourself that it's real. If any part of this story felt familiar, or if you've ever had that moment where you realized you were shrinking to keep the peace, tell me in the comments. You don't have to share details you don't want to share, just a sentence is enough. And if you want more stories like this, stories where the truth doesn't get buried and the consequences finally match the cruelty, stay with me here. There are more than you think. That night, I turned off the kitchen light, checked the lock on the door, and stood for a moment in the quiet hallway. Then I walked into my son's room, listened to his steady breathing, and let the calm settle over me like a blanket I had finally earned.